Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 10th of March, comes to you from London. And it's all about energy prices. That's really what has been affecting markets. And here we can just see the seesaw effect. This is a 1-minute chart of Brent crude. This is UK NAC, or this is European NAC gas, UK gas. These prices down 15% this morning. Really big retracement falls, and we write these reports for clients every morning in the energy market. And basically crude oil on Brent crude is range bound between 85 and 95 at the moment. So the way to think about this is below 85 you're bearish, above 95 you're bullish. In the middle of that range, we are somewhere in between. And there are similar ranges for gas prices. There are wider ranges for gas prices. But the key thing is that we are seeing a lot of uncertainty. And if we look at Brent crude, you can see yesterday we had like a $35 range in trading, which is just huge. And we ended up roughly where we started the day. That is effectively a candlestick doji. Normally that would be a top signal after a run in prices. If it was at the bottom, it would be a bottom signal. So that uncertainty hopefully means that is the top that we've seen, and now prices will consolidate. So the really key thing is those ranges that we talked about, and that's something that you need to keep an eye on. But the wider impact on markets is, of course, what most investors are interested in seeing. We're seeing that dollar falling away. That was the safe haven trade. We're now seeing that dollar turning bearish below the cloud. 99.70 was the height it reached on the dollar index. And so we're now seeing dollar weakness returning, having had a run on the short term. We're now seeing some of that unwinding. And so, that means that we're seeing currencies generally improving against the dollar. So we see sterling recovering a little bit there, and the same for the euro. We're seeing that recovery playing. So you can now start to discount any downside targets there because we're moving above the cloud. And that's the key thing, is knowing when to ignore the targets or to discount them. This is Bitcoin. That's the short-term chart. It's a bit of a mess. There's upside targets and downside targets generated from the selling thrusts and the buying thrusts. The daily chart is still bearish. Move, consolidation, move. We're still below the cloud. We haven't quite reached the targets, but a new low below 60,000 would be very bearish for Bitcoin. Looking at just a quick look at bond markets, because they did react quite negatively to this move. This is the UK gilt, and we're seeing here how we've gone from 4.23% to as high as 4.8%. We've pulled back to 4.57%, but this was more than a 50 basis point rise. That is a really big move, and certainly will have the UK Treasury worried. And if we look at bond markets generally, we saw the German bond nearly did activate yesterday, that upside target intraday, but we have seen all of these markets just testing the top of their bond limits. So really quite interesting. And that probably does mean, as we've intimated these last few days, that a move in UK interest rates lower is now off the cards. With the uncertainty, you could imagine the Bank of England are just going to do nothing. And so that's not great for anyone who's got a mortgage. But we're seeing here the NASDAQ really stuck in this sideways range, didn't activate the downside target, did intraday, but just with the recovery after Trump's comments yesterday, didn't activate the downside target. So markets are still in this uncertain phase. We did see interestingly on the S&P 500, this is the future, we did see a move below the cloud in the price, but the lagging line, which is where we close, that's that red candle there, the lagging line did actually just bounce on the cloud. So for the moment, we are back in the cloud, so that is still a sign of holding support. Remembering the lagging line is the confirming signal. So really interestingly, we are just seeing stocks holding up. The FTSE rebounding up 1.5% this morning, and it's found support on the price on the cloud. So that's really quite key. We've got the DAX, that's really reacted up 2.4%, both on the future and on the cash. So that's quite key. Did dip below the cloud on the lagging line. I normally like to say that I want to see 3 days or 3 bars if I'm looking at a weekly chart below the cloud or below a level before I would call a change, just to give it a little bit of room for a spike. So we're seeing Asian markets recovering strongly. Japan was up 2.5%, Hang Seng was up 2%, so and the Aussie market was up 1%. So we did see a dramatic fall away, but again bounced right on the cloud there. So really quite key. We've talked about energy, of course. We're seeing commodities actually recovering a little bit. Cocoa has been in a really vicious downtrend. Sugar is up 1.5%. So that's having recovered that 14 level is really quite key. But just remembering that every time we set a new low, that is just confirming the trend. Gold is up 1%. Not so clear here on the daily chart. You'd be looking for that to activate. On the 60-minute chart, we've got an upside target, so that is potentially breaking out of the range, but not done so yet. So that's going to be quite key. And silver's up 2.5%. Again, the short-term chart shows us that we're back above the cloud. So that is in bullish mode, but we do have a lack of targets. Now, looking at some of the equities, we look at the Dow first of all. We saw quite a strong move in Caterpillar yesterday. They were the strongest move. That's an engulfing candle, a bullish engulfing candle there at the end. All of this will be very obvious to you if you've done my training course, which we have an offer on this month. And you can see that these upside targets are now potentially coming back. So that was a downside. The 60-minute chart gave you a bit of a clue. We're not back above the cloud there on the 60-minute, so you may want to wait for that sort of move. And that's how you play these multiple time frames, is really quite key. So taking a look now at the UK market, and we just go straight to the FTSE 100, and we look at the medium-term chart. So the top of the performers today is Fresno. In fact, we've had a little bit of a change since I clicked there. We've now got Persimmon up 9%. But really interesting, that's a sharp recovery. That's why that 1 day on the lagging line would be key. We're back in the cloud. But we really did have a big fall away, and the 60-minute chart, you didn't get a target, and this is the key thing, you won't always get a target, but that was quite a fall to live with once you cross below the cloud. Fresno, that's interesting in that we've got a thrust off that first move off the top, then a lower high, not quite yet making the lower 33.36. That's the Linton level that hanging in there, and move below that, and we then look to that target. And again, you could go to the short-term chart and you can see the extent of these downside targets. That 33.44 level again, you can see that that's the level to watch. So this is how you really do need to just keep an eye on IAG, which is effectively British Airways Iberia. That downside target there is there now, and we're below the cloud, so it's hard to not see a change there. The same in Intercontinentals, that hotel, the hotel group, they're bouncing back on the lagging line for that downside target. If you're a long-term investor, you would look at the long-term chart, and you can see really a move above 150 is what we need there. That's the weekly, the daily, the 60-minute. You will know my emphasis on changing the time horizon. And of course, you can do this on any chart you like. You can just simply double click on the chart, hit the T key, and it will put the targets on, all rules based, any chart you like. So it's really, really powerful in that regard. So we are seeing a much, much stronger day in the FTSE. Most stocks are up, but the key thing is the trend. What's the trend? That's the key. So you can see here, this is GSK. They met that target. That target was given there at 1800, met. You've got to keep an eye on the trend. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. Bye for now.